Howdy folks, Nathan here with the 2022 Toyota Corolla Cross. Think of it as a crossover version of a Toyota Corolla, and you'd pretty much be right because it is based on the TNGA AC platform, and as such, it's very similar in terms of layout and in terms of powertrain to a regular Corolla. Let me take you on a quick tour. Now, bear in mind that what's going on here is this is a pre-embargo video. I'm going to show you the vehicle. I'm going to tell you about the facts that I can tell you, but pricing and performance in terms of me driving it and telling you about it, known as driving impressions, can't do it. Sorry guys. So let's quickly take a look at the styling because it still looks like a Corolla, even though they stretched it and lengthened it and made it look more like a crossover. One of the things they did is they kept a very similar styling with the headlights and the grille. Still has that Toyota Angry Mao, but they managed to make it look, I think, a little bit better. So it's actually one of the better looking crossovers that Toyota has in my book. Maybe it has to do with the fact that this partially functional grille, it is only partially functional, appears to have a little bit more brio than the other ones that are out there. Now, there are a bunch of character lines that they managed to put in here, but this is an interesting one right here. And that's because they sell this car overseas and they have a big light here. We don't get that because we don't get nice things. Go figure. Let me show you around the side. I really do like this color, by the way. There are 7 colors available. This one's, I love green. Anyway, you may notice that they have blistered fenders. One of the main design features of this vehicle is the fact that the blisters stand out on the fenders. That's right, I said blisters. The door panels are very smooth, and then you get back to, and I love the fact that they integrate this into the door panel, another blistered fender. Yes, and you also have these plastic components over the fenders, which make it look really roughy-tufty and ready to go off-road, which it is not built for. No matter who you are as a journalist, you will never find one of these going up and over boulders. I even know that. Just wanted to point that out. Let me show you the trunk. Once again, back to Corolla styling. This whole area here certainly looks like it comes off a Corolla, just a little bit different. And just in case you forgot what it was, you have the name here and up here. Yep, they wanted to make sure that you really knew this is a Corolla Cross. I actually really like that. I think it's a cool idea. And it's better than having the badging across the door or whatever in, big letters. That's just my own issue. All right. Now you get around 25 cubic feet of cargo space behind the second row. You lose a little tiny bit of that with the all-wheel drive model. And for those of you who are curious, yes, underneath here, get under the cameraman's stuff. Yep, there's the donut. I like the fact that, stay right there, camera guy. I'm gonna fold this seat down. That is a relatively flat surface. There is a bit of a bump, so it's not completely flat, but you get a lot more storage this way, and it drops super easy. Now the center row, rear seat basically, it doesn't adjust. There's no sliding back and forth or anything else like that that's fancy. But you know what you get in this? A lot more room than you do in the CHR. Now watch your head, I'm gonna push the button. Yes, there's a button here, look at that. Useless, I think, especially in a small crossover, but a very cool little thing in case you want to impress your friends. So let's move over to the hood. I'm gonna pop the hood, camera guy. Man, that is a hot engine. I mean, literally it's hot. It's 100 degrees here in Texas with like 90% humidity. Great for black shirts, but this engine, 2-liter, puts out 169 horsepower, 150 pound-feet of torque. Not exactly what you would call fast, but extremely efficient. Part of the reason for that is because it's hooked up to a continuously variable transmission with a first gear. That's right. It is unique. Nobody else builds this except for Toyota, and it works quite well. I think it's one of the better systems out there for this type of environment because it's efficient. So performance, nah, not so much, but efficiency, think about this. Combined 30 mpg with this all-wheel drive setup. That is combined. It's not a hybrid. Combined with the front-wheel drive version, 32 mpg. It's really good. If you want higher performance, I definitely think you should look at Mazda. Yeah, just Mazda. In we go. Now, I am able to fit behind myself, but there's something that you should know. This is actually how far back I normally go. This is about an inch further forward. And the reason why, getting in is no problem because my feet go underneath the seat. But getting out, well, I tripped almost on camera and I decided not to do that. So keep that in mind if you got big feet. Now, this is really what it's all about. Rear air conditioning vents. In this class, this category, this is unique and it works. For parents or for people who actually do carry passengers around, that's huge. But there's something else that's really important. In the back of a regular Corolla, I'm not very comfortable. In the back of the CHR, I am not that comfortable. In the back of this vehicle, I'm extremely comfortable by comparison. Now this color combination is strictly for the XLE model. By the way, you got a nice little cup holder here. So if you want this fake leather, which is actually quite nice and very spongy, you have to pony up to the top of the line. Interior, you get an eyepiece screen that's 7 inches. You get this infotainment screen, which is 8 inches. It's a relatively basic and simple setup, almost identical to, big surprise, the Corolla. Once again, this is a taller, larger Corolla. And as such, all of this is very familiar. I am very grateful that they have a standard gear lever, very simple. But the one final thing I can do on camera without breaking the embargo is take you for a ride. Now there is an electric parking brake. We do have hold here. Over here there's traction control and you can shut off the start-stop system, although every time you shut the car off and turn it back on, it goes back on. That's just the way it is. But let's accelerate. I'm not going to say anything. So what you heard was first gear, an actual gear, then it dropped into the CVT. That's how the system works. And they put it in a bunch of their vehicles. This is not the only one that has it. So some people are wondering, well, this thing has a lot of components out of other vehicles. For instance, its all-wheel drive system is directly out of the Toyota Camry all-wheel drive. Now, they wondered, well, why doesn't it have the same exact powertrain with the automatic transmission as opposed to this continuously variable transmission? That's a really good question. I do not have the answer for that. When I asked Toyota people, they smiled. This does have a continuously variable transmission, as I mentioned, and it's extremely efficient. I think that there's a big difference in terms of how you're hauling the weight and packaging. And when I mentioned packaging, they smiled again. So I think it has to do with packaging. But there's something else that you guys need to know as we're cruising to wrap up this drive, which I cannot tell you how it is, but maybe you can guess. There is a hybrid version of this vehicle that's being sold overseas, and it's available as a front-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive, and it has a very similar hybrid system as your Toyota Highlander and some of those other vehicles and the RAV4. So that one can give you all-wheel drive using an electric motor in the rear. This one, it's not like that. So if you love a Corolla, but you need all-wheel drive, and you want more room, and you want it to be kind of a crossover, but you still want all the Corolla stuff in it, then this kind of ticks those boxes, doesn't it? One final thing, you may be wondering about its ground clearance. It's just over 8 inches, and that is less than a lot of the competitors out there, but it's still respectable, I suppose. If you're thinking about the Jeep Renegade, the Chevy Trax, the Honda HR-V, the Buick Encore, and other vehicles in that class, this competes directly with them, and it will be in dealerships this October.